So welcome to my first episode of Digital Doc, a channel where I provide real-world reviews of the latest and most interesting in tech. So I was lucky enough to get my hands on a MacBook Pro 13-inch with the Touch Bar recently. I was one of the first people to pre-order, and I've been using it for a couple of weeks now, so I thought I'd give you my views on it, having used it. So first of all, it's a really nice piece of kit. As you can see, I got it in the space grey finish. It's really nicely made. The Apple logo is no longer translucent. You've got a single piece of aluminium that forms a hinge here at the back, which is new from the MacBook Air. And you've got these air vents on the side here, again, that are quite sharp. The tolerances around the case are really nice. It feels really solid. In terms of ports, you've got two Thunderbolt 3 ports on each side, so 4 in total on this Touch Bar model, and the microphone jack, the headphone jack, which Apple decided to keep. So you can see it here on top of my old MacBook Air 13. So despite the screen size being the same, you can see that you've actually saved quite a bit in the footprint, both on the side and the front here. And that makes it a lot more portable, which is great. So let me get rid of this old MacBook Air. Now, of course, one of the biggest changes is these ports. No longer do we have the USB ports, or the USB-A ports, and the Thunderbolt 2 ports, so that's caused me a little bit of trouble. I'm used to connecting up my external monitors through a mini display port, and of course I've got plenty of USB peripherals. So that's been a bit of a pain. This MacBook comes with a new charger. On the outside it looks pretty similar. This is the thing that plugs into the wall. It's got this Thunderbolt 3 USB style connection on the end here, and it comes with this charging cable. So of course this laptop also departs from the MagSafe connector, which I was a big fan of. So this is how you plug in the power connector, and as you can see, that's pretty stable. I think if I was to yank on this, unless I pull it out completely in that direction, it might bring the laptop with it. So this is actually a converter from my Google Pixel, who were kind enough to include this in the box. So I've been using this to connect up some of my USB peripherals like my keyboard. And one of the good things about having this way of charging is that I can now use some of my phone chargers to charge my laptop. So take for example this one, I can just use this USB-C connector that I've been using for my Google Pixel, plug it into one of these ports here, and it will charge. Now I've tried using these chargers overnight, and it takes about 12 or so hours with a 3 amp charger to actually fully charge the laptop. But if I'm traveling light, or if I've forgotten my charger, or if I just want to use my laptop, lightly on holiday, this is actually a pretty useful way of getting charge. So moving on to the laptop itself, here you can see it with the Touch Bar here at the top. You've got this enlarged trackpad with Force Touch, which is quite nice. It took me a bit of getting used to. I had to customize the sensitivity of it, but I've got it pretty much to the way I like it, which is good. The keyboard is of course different. It's of the new style with the butterfly mechanism, and it works pretty well actually. I wasn't sure whether I was going to like it, but having used it for a couple of weeks now, I've gotten used to it. And let me just show you some typing here. So as you can see, it's pretty clicky. It's quite noisy, but it feels good actually. I like it. I've definitely gotten used to it. As you can see, you've got the Touch Bar up here. So this is kind of the default view. You get the ability to customize these 4 icons at the top, and only if you expand do you get the sort of keys that you're used to with the old MacBook Air. Being able to go forward and backwards in tracks, for example, or change the keyboard illumination. Now I haven't found that many uses for the Touch Bar yet. It certainly looks nice, but you know, not many apps support it. Spotify doesn't support it here. Some of the Apple apps do support it, for example Finder. So I've got some additional options here. I can create a new folder directly from the Touch Bar, which is, you know, semi-useful, but I wouldn't say it's a game changer. The escape key is actually, you know, always there. So, you know, if you had any concerns around that, it's definitely still functional. You know, it's slightly shifted into the right, which is a little bit weird. Although if you do push on the left side, it does seem to activate it. You don't get any tactile feedback or sort of haptic feedback from the Touch Bar, so you know that takes a bit of getting used to. In terms of the screen, you know, the screen is really nice. The colours are vibrant. You know, it's a Retina screen, which I'm not used to, which is great. And you know, it goes pretty bright too. So another thing I wanted to show you was connecting up an external monitor. So this was one of the things that I had problems with initially. When I went to the Apple store, they advised me to get a Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2 dongle, which would allow me to connect up my old mini DisplayPort. But actually I found out that didn't work. Those dongles don't actually support mini DisplayPort. So I had to go back to the drawing board and I bought a DisplayPort to USB-C cable, which allows me to connect up my Dell P2715Q 4K monitors. So let me just show you plugging this in. Great, so it's detected the monitor here, and I've got 4K up here on the screen. So the other thing worth touching on here is the performance and battery life. Certainly the laptop feels quite fast and performant. You know, I would say there definitely seem to be a few niggles with, for example, Spotify and Google Chrome. I've noticed Chrome sort of hanging at times, you know, not allowing me to put in inputs to input boxes, which seems a bit strange. You know, I'm not sure whether it's just me or whether it's problem with MacBook Pros and Google Chrome in general. I guess it's still early days, so we'll see. In terms of battery life, I've certainly noticed that it's not as good as what I'm used to with the old MacBook Air. Okay, so right now it says Google Chrome is using significant energy. I've got 5 hours and 34 minutes remaining. So if I close Google Chrome, that'll probably go up. But in sort of real world use, I've seen about 4.5 hours, 5 hours, just from browsing, you know, having quite a few tabs open, not watching videos or doing anything that intense. But certainly, you know, I think the battery life isn't quite as good as I expected. So in conclusion, I think this is a really good machine. Definitely it comes with some compromises. It's not cheap, so this version is actually pretty much maxed out beside only having 512 gigabytes of storage, and it ended up costing almost $2,700, which is way more than I paid for my MacBook Air. And you're going to have to pay a little bit extra for some of the dongles you'll need, and right now there isn't kind of the ideal hub that I'm looking for, which would allow me to power a 4K monitor at 60 Hz and charge and have a USB hub all over one Thunderbolt 3. But I'm sure that will come along over time. So I think, you know, if you're really sort of hooked into the Mac ecosystem, if you love Mac products, you probably won't mind spending this much on this particular laptop. But, you know, if you're not, definitely I would look around. You know, I think there are some great PC alternatives out there. But, you know, for me, I'm very much a fan of the macOS operating system and Mac products in general, and I think this will be a great workhorse for me in the future. So, you know, if you like this video, please feel free to share it, to like it, and let me know what you think in the comments. Cheers!